It's hard to believe that it's been nearly 20 years since Dodge first reintroduced the iconic Charger nameplate to their lineup as a flagship full-size performance family sedan. And when this model first returned to the lineup, it became an instant hit for Dodge, with sales approaching nearly 100,000 units every year. Now, of course, over the past 2 decades, the company has made some pretty big updates to the Charger nameplate in the 6th and the 7th generation. However, for 2024, Dodge introduced an all-new 8th generation. This is a radical redesign. Even though the look isn't all that different from the previous generation Challenger, what we have underneath the skin is an all-new architecture, including a multi-energy powertrain source, an all-new interior with their latest technology interface, and even more performance, of course, with the fact that the Daytona models are going fully electric. Now, as you can see, this week we are testing out the 4-door version. This is a 2026 Charger Daytona 4-door Scat Pack. It's really the only way that you can get the Daytona at the moment, since the base RT was discontinued, and with up to 670 horsepower under the hood and 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, it certainly has the stats needed to actually represent the Charger name. So the big question I went into, for those of you who are looking for a new age muscle car and you also need an extra set of doors for added practicality, has Dodge managed to infuse the 4-door Charger with enough Charger DNA to be worthy of it? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the unique styling differences of the 4-door version for the new Charger Daytona, let me first start by popping the hood here, because this is a massive hood, and because there's no engine, you're probably wondering, does this vehicle have a front trunk storage space? And as you can see, just like the 2-door variant, there is a small front trunk storage space, so you can put some items in here. Now, obviously, when you look underneath the hood of a Charger, you don't expect to find no engine and find a little storage compartment. This actually measures around 1.9 cubic feet, which is a pretty usable amount. You can see behind it, you're going to find the electric motor, because remember, this vehicle comes standard with dual electric motors, which offer up 500 kilowatts combined. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. Now, just like the 2-door that we tested nearly 10 months ago, all variants come with a 100.5 kilowatt hour battery pack. Around 94 of that is usable, and you have the 2 electric motors that are drawing power from it, delivering up to 670 horsepower and 632 foot-pounds of torque. Now remember, the 670 is only achieved when you guys actually have this vehicle in its power shot mode, or you have it in launch mode. It all goes out through a 1-speed reduction gear transmission, and unlike Chargers in the past, this vehicle comes standard with electronic all-wheel drive, courtesy of its front and rear electric motors. Now, Dodge says that combination is good for 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, which we had a chance to test out the 2-door model. It got 3.6. We'll try this one out when we get out on the road. Top speed is around 137 miles an hour. So it's not quite as fast as the old Charger, especially if you're thinking about the V8 powered gas-powered Charger Scat Pack from the previous generation. Now, the downside, of course, with this being all electric, is the old Charger was already a heavy beast, weighing in at around 4,500 pounds. This model here, however, is even heavier than the 2-door. It's basically approaching 6,000 pounds. So the battery pack and all the additional architecture underneath here, this is, remember, riding on the Stella Large architecture, adds roughly 1,500 pounds of weight to the actual vehicle, which is heavy, but it's also not the heaviest EV you're going to find out there, especially considering the size. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here and talk about the exterior styling. Now, first of all, I love this color that Dodge has sent over here. This is called Ludicrous. It's an extra $695. It's definitely worth every penny. That's the beauty about the Charger and the Challengers. Dodge is not afraid to offer these vehicles in some fun colors, and they also don't charge you a crazy amount to actually get the fun colors. You can see the design of this model. The thing you're going to notice instantly is this right here. This is called the R-Wing front air damper, basically. It's like a front spoiler. This actually allows for air to kind of pass through here, go over the hood. The hood bulges, of course, all in the name of aerodynamics. I mean, this is definitely not really the most aerodynamic EV out there, but that's how you're going to distinguish this as the EVs. It has that R-Wing design hood. You can see there's also some new styling elements here. You have these standard reflector style full LED headlights, which have a new signature LED daytime running light that's a full light bar, along with the illuminated Fratzog logo there, as opposed to the typical Dodge badge. You can see the turn signals are LED. And then you can see down here at the lower fascia, there is some actual functional grille openings. You have a gloss black front splitter, of course, integrated parking sensors, and 360 camera. That's part of a plus package if you want the 360 camera. And compared to the 6-pack model that I tested, or that I saw in person about a month ago, the difference here, of course, is the 6-pack has an actual grille there, some extra grille inserts, along with no R-Wing hood here, just a hood bulge to kind of make room for the engine. But in general, this car I think is really beautiful. In fact, just having this vehicle for the last few days, it gets a lot of attention out there. It gets a lot of attention from everywhere because I think Dodge did a phenomenal job with the design. It is instantly recognizable as like a modern day Charger / Challenger, but at the same time, it also kind of brings it into a new era. Now, as you move around the side profile of the vehicle, the Charger 4-door is big, but it's also about the same size as the 2-door version that we had a chance to see in person and drive nearly a year ago, with a wheelbase of 121 inches long and a overall length of 206.6. This vehicle is about 6.5 inches longer than the previous generation Charger 4-door. The wheelbase actually remains pretty similar, and width for this vehicle is 79.8. So this vehicle is actually still 1.5 inches wider versus the wide body versions of the previous generation Charger. So that's very impressive that they made it so wide. You can see my particular test car has a track package and a plus package, and that upgrades you to a luster nickel finish on the 20-inch alloy wheels with kind of like a double 5-spoke design. The brakes are also massive, 16.1-inch rotors at the front. Same thing at the rear, clamped down by a 6-piston Brembo red painted caliper. You get a 4-piston Brembo caliper at the back. These brakes are part of the track package, and you also get these super sticky Goodyear Eagle F1 Super Sport summer performance tires with a 305 by 35 R20 front tire, and even fatter 315. So that again gives the car the classic muscle car looks and feel. You also have an adaptive suspension that's part of the wide body competition suspension that's included with the track package. We'll talk about the ride and handling dynamics, but you are paying roughly $5,000 for the plus package, and even more again if you want that track package. Now, this little Super B logo over here is very iconic, and it was what was found on the previous generation Scat Pack. It looks good, of course, on the side fender there with the Ludicrous paint. My test car also has a suede and carbon package that adds genuine carbon fiber on the mirrors and on the interior as well, which is a nice touch. You also get a sun and sound package for $2,500. That includes this panoramic glass roof. It sadly doesn't open up to vent air, but there is a retractable shade at least to allow you to block out the sun if you don't want. And then you can see backing away from the vehicle, I really like the proportions of the 4-door model. I think this actually looks much better versus the 2-door. And remember, the two vehicles are the same length, despite the fact that you have the extra doors here on the 4-door variant. I think a lot of people are going to probably end up choosing the 4-door version. I kind of like how Dodge decided to just go with the Charger name and just offer a 2- and a 4-door variation. Now, moving over to the rear, you can see this is where it looks more like the Charger from the previous generation. You do have, of course, some newer design elements here. The track package includes this very tasteful rear, black painted rear lip spoiler on the back, which it's actually a little bit bigger than a typical lip spoiler. You can see you've got the same style for the full LED taillights, where it's a full LED light bar. The illuminated Fratzog logo, of course. You have the LEDs for the turn signals, for the brake lights, for the reverse lights. And you can see down here, looks like some actual functional openings there. You have integrated parking sensors, cameras, of course. And then you can see down here, this is how you're gonna know it's the Daytona. It'll say Daytona there. The 6-pack models will just say Charger. And then below that, it actually says Fratzonic, because that is basically the name of their chambered exhaust system. That's basically a speaker that goes through these chambers. It has been a point of controversy with the Fratzonic exhaust. I like the fact that Dodge decided to be different because it gives this vehicle some really interesting sounds that tries to sound like a muscle car. But let me go ahead and start it up. You guys can hear how it sounds for yourself, and you can tell me what you think. And I have to say, guys, you can put the exhaust in a stealth mode. And I have to say also, my neighbors have definitely noticed me starting this car up and turning it off every time I pull into my driveway or my garage. It is, again, very different. I personally think the noise is cool, but at the same time, I can see why the purists hate it because, again, it is a fake noise. But I applaud Dodge for at least being different here. And it also creates actual like vibrations throughout the chassis to basically make this car feel even more mechanical and more visceral, even though it again is all synthetic. Now, looking at the cargo area, this is the beauty about the new Charger. Daytona, or the new Charger in general, is the fact that it is now a liftback, which allows this vehicle to offer enough trunk space that would rival some small SUVs. You have around 24 cubic feet of space, just under 24 cubic feet of space with the seats up. Obviously, there is a curve here that's going to limit how much stuff you can actually put to the ceiling. Underneath here, you can see there is a small storage area along with a air compressor. I believe this vehicle only comes with a fix-a-flat kit. You can sort of lift that up, but it's kind of locked down by something else. If you want to fold down the seats back here, sadly Dodge doesn't allow you to do it from back here. You have to go into the side there and push the button. It'll expand the cargo to around 37 cubic feet of space. So 37 cubic feet of space is actually a pretty healthy amount. I think the old Charger offered roughly 20 cubic feet of space from the sedan profile. So this is, again, a huge surprise, and it really makes this vehicle one of the most practical four doors out there, especially if you need to use this vehicle as your only car. So once you're done drooling over the exterior styling of the new Charger Daytona, let's go ahead and hop inside the interior. But before we do that, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the newer Intelligent Access key that Stellantis has just recently introduced. I like the way the key looks and feels. It feels pretty high quality. I like the carbon fiber accent here with the Dodge logo. It has your typical buttons here for unlock, lock, remote start, power liftgate, and then a panic function. And I think this key definitely goes with the whole higher tech theme of the all-new Charger. Now, as you can see, approaching the vehicle, the door handles are the more aerodynamic style. You basically have a button here. If you push that button, that will lock the doors for you. Sadly, Dodge does not offer power folding mirrors on this car. I think it should offer that considering how wide it is. If you want to unlock the door, just touch the back of the door handle, push that button with the key fob on you, it'll unlock the door for you. Now, my particular test car, as you can see, has the Plus package, which means you have some upgraded interior appointments here. You have these black with red contrast seats, which are covered in leather and suede. That's part of the $2,000 suede and carbon package, of course. Or at the Plus package is $5,000 extra is what includes these seats. You can also get for $500 extra a demonic red seat. So Dodge really only offers red or black interior. I kind of wish that they would offer like a light gray interior or a brown interior. It would look good with this blue exterior color. But regardless, these seats adjust in, it looks like 14 different ways. They are heated and ventilated, which is nice. You also have two-person memory only on the driver's side. But the contrast red stitching and these all new seats certainly look a lot more modern versus the old model, which had seats that dated back into like the 2010 era, which just looked and felt old. You can see the door panel has a really interesting design. I love the real leather covering the upper portion with the contrast stitch. This is actually genuine carbon fiber. That's part of that that carbon and suede package for $2,000. The window controls are one touch for all four. It has some newer switchgear, which feels pretty high quality. Again, no power folding mirrors, but this little button here is what opens the vehicle. It's an electronic latch if you guys have a loss of power. There's a secondary latch here that you can open that up in case the power is out. You can see down here, it's all hard touch plastic. And then my test car also has the optional 18 speaker Alpine stereo system, which sounds good. If you guys are an audiophile, it's very bass heavy, but that's part of that Plus package there. So if you want the better sound, you have to spend that extra $5,000 for that Plus package. Now, stepping inside, you can see the vehicle has that typical lower sedan step-in height, but it's not as horrible to get in and out of as other sedans that are even lower. As I shut the door has a pretty solid sounding thunk. Remember, this is built on the all-new Stella Large architecture, which is a multi-energy platform designed to accommodate gas and electric drivetrains. Now, starting the vehicle up, you can see the start-stop button is this weird rectangle-ish or octagon right below the pistol grip shifter. And then literally every time you start this damn thing up, it has that fake little noise, or it's not even little, it is loud. It actually rattles and shakes the entire car. And all of your neighbors are gonna notice every time you start and stop this vehicle. Now, you can turn it off in the screen here by going into the electric driving, putting it into a stealth mode, which if you are more, I guess, conscientious of your neighbors and more considerate, you will turn it off. I have it on right now because I'm trying to show you guys the sound, but I do feel bad because my neighbors pretty much hear me every time I start this vehicle up. Now, the one thing I love about the Plus package and this interior is their attitude adjustment interior lighting. You can see it's got a light pipe that kind of goes all the way across the door panel, goes over the dash. It doesn't go behind here though, but it also continues here, and it even goes into the back seats. You can change the color here to multiple colors. The one thing I did notice is this right here has a really bad reflection into the windshield at night. So what Dodge needs to do is they need to actually increase or cover this hood up, make this hood a little bit larger here, at least over the dash, so it doesn't reflect onto the windshield at night. That was a small thing that I noticed that I'm hoping that they'll address with a refresh. But other than that, this interior feels modern, sophisticated, and dare I say premium. I love the new steering wheel here with the flat bottom and flat top design. It feels really good in your hands with the contrast leather and stitching, the perforated leather as well, which feels really nice. You have these paddles to control the regen braking. And then with the Plus package, you also get a power tilt telescoping steering column, which is a nice upscale touch. You can also push these little drive mode buttons here. You can see there's auto, which is what it defaults to. There's a sport, a track mode. You can see, you can even hear it gets louder when you put it into track mode. And The sport and track mode is where it allows you to rev the car up by hitting the accelerator. If you put it into auto, it doesn't actually have that noise, and it gets a lot quieter. It also changes the way the instrument panel looks. By the way, this is the upgraded instrument panel that is 16 inches. The standard one, I think, is 10.3. All of them come with the 12.3-inch center display, which has Uconnect 5. So if you option in the Plus package, you'll get the bigger instrument display, which is 16 inches, which looks nice, and it pairs well with the 12.3-inch display here. Power shot is where this vehicle is going to give you that extra 40 horsepower compared to when you're not in power shot, but you can also get that extra 40 horsepower when you engage the launch control, which is over here. This vehicle has 627 pound-feet of torque pretty much all the time. So keep that in mind. The wheel, I really like the way it feels. It also has a nice, 9-3 grip. And you also get a heads-up display with this trim. In terms of the materials on the dash, you carry over with that real leather and stitching here. Same thing with this area. You have the same genuine carbon fiber there. And unlike the previous generation, this is actually not horrible to see out of. The A-pillar here isn't as thick as the previous model. You do have the hood bulge that you have to deal with, but other than that, it definitely feels a little bit easier to see in and out of. Now look back to the center display here. You can see this has their latest Uconnect 5 software. It has heated and cooled seats, which are separate buttons here off to the side. You also have a 2-level heated steering wheel. Same thing on this side for the heated and cooled seats. This Uconnect 5 display is pretty much what you'd expect it to be. It has over-the-air updates. It includes wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it also has a full 360 camera. When I put the vehicle into reverse, you can see there's your top-down view with trajectory, parking sensors, distance markers, excellent quality to the resolution as well. You can also go into several different views, and I'm really impressed with the quality camera resolution. This is exactly the kind of upgrade that Dodge needed compared to the older 8.4-inch screen from the Uconnect 4 system of the previous generation. You can see there's also some favorite icons here where you can go into a performance pages, DXR, that's part of the track package for an extra $4,500. This shows you additional gauges, G-force, propulsion, of course, how much power and torque you're doing, timers, if you want to do your 0 to 60 time, quarter-mile times, of course, that's all standard stuff here when you look at any kind of Dodge performance vehicle. If you go into the drive modes here, you can see that brings it up here in the screen where you can kind of go to an auto setup. You can also customize your drive mode here. In custom for myself, I actually went into the custom setup and I put the propulsion in track, the paddles on, traction in street, suspension in street, which is comfort, and then steering in track. So it's nice how you can do that, but you can really see it makes a difference there when you start switching it from the custom setup or the track setup into the sport setup in terms of the sound. It's just super annoying and super loud. The home screen you can see is slightly customizable, but overall I'm really happy with the way this looks. I think 12.3-inch display is a good enough size. I like that Dodge didn't go too crazy with the display size, and I like the 16-inch display over here. Now you can see down here there's a few more buttons for your traction control off system, your lane departure alert, parking sensor off, and then your launch control. If you push that, you can see it goes into the drag mode right away, and it tells you what you need to do to get the best launch. What I don't like, however, is when you put this vehicle into its sports setting or track setting, it automatically turns off the traction control. Now you can turn that back on by just pushing that button. It'll allow it to come back on, so kind of keep that in mind. The pistol grip shifter is an homage to the, I guess, the classic Chargers. It is a little bit of a finicky shifter. I only noticed that when I was going from neutral to drive. At times it kind of was giving me some trouble, although of course now it's not. But I don't love the way that sound feels when you push the click to actually engage it. That's a small little nitpick of mine, but it definitely looks really nice, and I appreciate the fact that it's a traditional meaty shifter. You have more carbon fiber, of course, here. Your wireless phone charging pad is here. You've got 2 USB-C charging ports, nice sized cup holders, padded leather console here, of course. And then you can see, open that up, you have another USB, a 12-volt power outlet, and then you can see Dodge also offers a key card. If you guys want to use a digital key card to get in and out of the vehicle, you don't actually have to use the fob. I mentioned earlier the seats are pretty comfortable and supportive, although they don't have much in terms of lateral bolstering, but they do have a really effective cooled seat function that works well. You can see there's suede Alcantara here and on the insert here. Open up the glove box, it's a bin style, it's damped but not lined with felt, offers a lot of additional storage in addition to the storage over here. Now you can see there's LED map lighting, and then you can see over here there's that big panoramic glass roof, which I actually lied earlier. I said it had a retractable shade. It doesn't, but it is very, very dark tinted. So there was never a moment where I thought it was too dark or not dark enough to where the sun was beating down. So that's definitely a nice touch, but Dodge should really add a retractable shade, or at least allow me to open that. I would like to open it to vent air. It even has suede Alcantara on the roof, which is really nice. And in addition to that, you also have a sunglass holder. So overall, the interior is definitely a huge step up. And this is probably one of the reasons why you want to upgrade to the new Charger, because Dodge really pulled out all the stops for the interior. It feels modern, it feels sophisticated, it feels almost luxury and premium-like. So this is definitely a big upgrade. Just know that it is a pretty hefty price tag to get the Plus package, which I think I would probably do to get the additional features like the bigger driver display, the heads-up display, the cooled seats, the upgraded seats as well. So this is definitely a nice interior, although there were a couple of squeaks and rattles that I noticed when I was going over bumps, and from the silly Fratzonic exhausts every time you would rev the car up. But let's go ahead and hop into the backseat area, because this isn't where you really are going to prefer the four-door model. Now, when I open up the door here, you can see the four-door has the same length and wheelbase as the two-door, but you get basically the same legroom back here. Dodge says you have around 37 inches of legroom, which is a pretty healthy amount. You can see the door panel materials are the same high-quality stuff with the leather, the contrast stitch. You have the carbon fiber, of course, real padded leather here. It's just hard-touch plastic here. You still have one-touch up door handles, or one-touch up window controls, of course, if you want to access or use the windows. And then you can see the seats back here. They also fold down and create almost a flat load floor, so that's fantastic. Sadly, however, they don't have a recline function, but that's okay. At least you get a really wide back seat that can actually accommodate full-size adults. Now, getting back here, you do still have to duck your head pretty bad to get back here because of that sloping roof. As I shut the door, you can see that rattle that you heard is actually my garage clicker there on the sun visor. There's a pretty generous amount of space. Like I said, 37 inches of legroom back here is the same as the coupe. Try finding that in any other muscle car or any other full-size sedan, really, that has this much performance. You can see this is my driving position. You have storage cubbies in each of the front seats, which you typically don't get with these performance seats. There is no flat floor here, and that's because, remember, this platform is designed to accommodate a gas engine as well. With the Plus package, you do have some nice features here. You get the rear seat air vents as standard, but you get heated rear seats. That's part of the Plus package, 3 levels, along with the 2 USB-C charging ports. It would be nice to see cooled seats back here, but that's okay. You do have an armrest that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. And then you have these headrests, which are kind of fixed into position, but they are relatively good in terms of just holding your head. In terms of the roof, you can see it goes all the way back into the second row, or to the backseat area here. And then headroom space, I will say, is tight. This is kind of where I noticed that sloping roof of this vehicle. I'm only 5'7". My hair is basically grazing the ceiling, so this is pretty bad in terms of the headroom, but at least legroom is great, where I can easily cross my legs and get comfortable back here. But for the middle passenger, you do have to deal with this console that juts out, and you also have that hump there for the drive shaft for the upcoming gas models. So we have been waiting a long time for Dodge to finally give us an all-new version of the Dodge Charger. And this is not some Band-Aid heavy refresh. Even though the cars look, very much like an evolution from the previous gen, this is a from-the-ground-up all-new vehicle. We're talking about an all-new platform, all-new powertrain propulsion system, all-new interior. It just feels like a completely new-age car from the moment you get behind the wheel. And that's kind of where I feel sorry for Dodge, because the EV version, the Daytona, gets so much hate from the traditional Dodge buyer because they just can't accept the fact that it doesn't have a V8 engine underneath the hood. And I've been waiting about 10 months to finally get behind the wheel of a Charger again. So now that Dodge has sent me the 4-door Scat Pack model, which for 2026, you can only buy the Scat Pack for now, because they've discontinued the RT versions of the Daytona. And what that means is this model offers up to 670 horsepower when you have it in launch mode, or if you activate the power shot, which Dodge claims is good for 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, which is faster than the Hellcat wide body of the previous generation. And because this vehicle is all-wheel drive, you don't have to worry about trying to get it to launch properly, because it has that all-weather grip now, finally. And that's kind of a good thing, because it was a problem, of course, with the old generation Charger models. And launching this vehicle couldn't honestly be any easier, because it has launch control, it has a drag strip mode. You can also turn off the traction control and deactivate the front axle to give this vehicle the ability to do the smoky burnouts that you expect from a Dodge model. And that's kind of the great thing about this car, is it has all of the usual, I guess, abilities that your old Charger has, plus some more. And what you're hearing as well is that Fratzonic exhaust, which is a patented chambered exhaust that Dodge developed for this vehicle. I know it gets a lot of hate because it is a fake synthetic sound, but at the same time, I actually like it. It's weird, it's quirky, it's different, it's futuristic. And it definitely tries to sound like a V8 muscle car, minus the shifting that you would hear from like a Hyundai Ioniq N, for example, the Ioniq 5N. I actually think Dodge should consider adding the shifting, but let's go ahead and try a 0 to 60 performance. To get the best time, you basically push the launch button here, which automatically deactivates the traction control. And we'll go ahead and leave that off. Apply brake pressure, and it tells you launch ready. Ooh. Oh, now on our first run there, that's with it more going slightly uphill, we got 3.43 seconds. Remember, Dodge claims 3.3, so we'll try another run up ahead where it's more level ground, but that definitely has the punch that you expect from today's modern EVs. At the same time, this will smoke the previous generation Hellcat models, even though it doesn't sound as good, and that's because mostly of the all-wheel drive grip. Because remember, 670 horsepower is a lot, but it also doesn't have as much as the Hellcat had, which had like 717, if I remember correctly. But the cool thing about this car is the instantaneous power. Like, put your foot down and, oh, it just pushes you hard in the seat, which, as you expect from a vehicle like this, it just gives you that G-force that you're looking for, that tunnel vision. And Dodge has an even faster version coming, an SRT Banshee that's supposedly going to have over 1,000 horsepower. That should be a sub 3 second car, maybe 2.5 second car, 0 to 60. That's what it needs to be if Dodge wants to, you know, get it in line with all of its competitors. The cool thing about this platform is it's designed to accommodate internal combustion as well, but the vehicle in general just feels very well planted. It's got that perfect weight distribution. It's got the battery pack, the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack that lines the floor, so the low center of gravity is great, is wonderful. We've got adaptive suspension on this model with impressive upgraded Brembo braking system. The steering in this vehicle also doesn't have much in terms of heft, but it surprisingly is very nimble. There's lots of decent feedback actually coming through the tires, which I wasn't kind of expecting for a vehicle like this. But what I love about this car is it just feels really fast. It has the performance that you want. It has the refinement that you want. The ride quality is also surprisingly supple, even though we're on these 35 series tires. These are, again, a 20-inch wheel on sticky summer performance tires. And you can hear when you come to a slowdown, you still hear a lot of that noise coming through. I have it in its sports setting right now, and that's with the, you know, noise, the Fratsonic exhaust kind of like at a medium level. If I go to track mode here, you can really hear it gets even louder. In fact, what I've noticed with this vehicle is when you have it in track mode, it actually sounds very similar to the boomy exhaust noise that you might get from the aftermarket. I actually think it's too much when I have it in track mode. So I personally think that sport is probably the good middle ground there. Again, you can turn off that noisy exhaust if you guys don't like it, if you hate those fake noises, but I'm gonna leave them on for the majority of this review because without it, it's just gonna feel like every other EV. Now, we are unfortunately dealing with some construction traffic, but you can hear in track mode, it is so unbelievably loud. And that's the other thing, as I pass these construction workers, this car gets so much attention everywhere I take it. I mean, Dodge's team nailed the look of this car. Perfect, you know, 10 out of 10 with the look. It is such a beautiful looking car. It has that it exudes American muscle, and the four-door, I have to say, actually looks even better. I love the way the four-door model looks. It's got that wide body design. It's a big vehicle. I mean, it's longer. It's as long as like a Mercedes-Benz S-Class, so kind of keep that in mind. This is a huge vehicle. And when you have it in this track mode, for example, it's got the regen braking, almost like a one-pedal drive. Actually, it feels basically like a one-pedal drive. Let's see if it'll actually bring you down to 10 miles an hour, and then you have to work the brakes yourself. So again, some manufacturers offer a true one-pedal drive feature, but I actually think that I prefer it to just bring me down to a full stop, but that's not always the case. It's something that you have to get used to with every different vehicle. The turning radius definitely reminds you this is a big car. Oh, it actually spun the front tires out there in track mode. Oh, you can really hear it is loud when it's in this mode. Now remember, it's doing that because it's trying to, you know, give you some actual sounds. The Fratsonic exhaust actually transmits vibrations into the cabin and through the steering wheel, so it actually gives you, like, not just the sound, it gives you the feel of an internal combustion engine, which is really strange. It's awkward at first, but once you get used to it, I kind of like it a lot. I don't know if the purists are gonna like it. They're gonna probably just wait for the the actual gas-powered model, which I should be driving the gas-powered version at some point. I'm looking forward to driving the gas-powered version probably early next year. But remember, for an extra basically $5,000, Dodge gives you the EV, which gives you an extra 120 horsepower over the 550 horsepower Hurricane straight 6 turbo engine. And that's the one that I think that when the aftermarket gets a hold of, it's going to be really, really surprising. It's going to be really impressive. But overall, I'm pleased. The seats in this car are also very comfortable and supportive. They don't have much lateral grip, which is kind of what I expected from Dodge when this generation, or from the previous generation. The seats have always been a little bit more wide. They're designed to accommodate somebody of wider frame, so that's something you kind of have to keep in mind. But in general, this car is just so impressive in terms of the performance that people are going to really be shocked with this car. Still spinning out the tires. Wow, we got 3.35 seconds there. 3.35, we'll take that as our best time. So it's basically bang on. That's with it on level ground with Dodge's claim. And I love how the front tires will still keep chirping and spinning a little bit. That's because the drag mode will turn off the traction control, even though the stability control is still on. And that time is impressive. I will say it's not very impressive though when you start comparing it to other performance branded EVs. But remember, Dodge has significantly reduced the price tag of this vehicle for 2026. And that's gonna help, give it a little bit better value for money there. That's always the Dodge thing, is they give you a ton of value for money here. Let's try another launch here. Just push the launch button. It's so simple. Oh, I actually forgot to let this thing actually record that, but I'll never get tired of launching this vehicle. It is just an absolute brute. It's so easy. I love how you don't have to deal with the smoky burnouts when you actually want to get away fast enough, but then if you want to just push a button, you can turn off the front motor and it'll give you those smoky burnouts. Now let's talk about the range of this car, because that's kind of the big controversy with the new Charger EV. The sedan version actually is rated at less miles per charge. 223 miles on a full charge is what it says it's supposed to get. At 90% charge, it was showing around 202. When I had this at a full charge, the most the trip computer was showing was 232 miles. Now, I am driving this vehicle in ideal driving situations, and in my week's worth of testing, I only averaged around 190 miles of real-world range. That's not good considering how big the battery pack is, how big this car is. It's not going to be great for road trips. It will charge at an average pace. Dodge says, actually a little bit above average, Dodge says it'll do 10 to 80% if you can find a level 3 in around 27 minutes. So it's a little bit quicker than average, but it's still not the fastest. This is where, again, it's a heavy vehicle. It weighs, 6,000 pounds, but at the same time, it hides its weight pretty well, and that's because the battery pack keeps the, weight distribution low. It keeps the center of gravity low, and this is definitely one of the best handling Chargers I've ever tested with these sticky summer tires. It's also quiet when you want it to be. If I take it out of a sport mode here and put it in just auto, it has a little bit of a hint of that fake Fretsonic exhaust, but it's much more comfortable for daily driving. If you plan to go on a longer highway trip, this is great. It just, again, is not great in terms of the real world range. So I'm hoping Dodge at some point will give us a model that can do well over 300 miles of range. I think that's what is the key, number that a lot of EVs need to hit. But remember, if you guys don't like that, the six-pack model is coming early next year. But I have to say, guys, spending a week with the Daytona and the Scat Pack version, I'm impressed. I like this car. I didn't really like this car that much when I first drove it, but now after I've spent a week with it, it is very, very impressive. But at the same time, I can see why people hate this thing. But what makes it, or what helps the car a lot, is the fact that Dodge reduced the price of this model by over $14,000 compared to 2025. So although there was a moment where Dodge sold nearly 100,000 Chargers in the US every year, last year in 2024, Dodge only managed to sell just under 35,000 units, which kind of also shows the fact that the previous generation was slowly being phased out. The new version, the Daytona, was also being put in, but you guys have probably heard that the electric versions of the Charger really haven't been selling, and that's because a lot of the typical enthusiasts who really like Dodge are just not in favor of them going electric. Remember, the electric version is what came out first in 2024. 2025 is the first full model year. And then for 2026, they are making some adjustments, mainly to the addition of the four-door version and a significant reduction in price, which I actually think is a really good thing, because when this car first came out, it was actually a lot more expensive than I thought it needed to be. But after spending a full week with the four-door version, I have to say, when I first had a chance to drive this vehicle, I think out in Arizona, I really liked it, but at the same time, I had a lot of questions because I thought that Dodge really should have introduced the car with the twin-turbo Hurricane 6-cylinder first. We are expecting that model to show up in early 2026. I should be driving it around that time as well, and it can't come soon enough. But I have to say, after spending a week with the electric version, don't write this thing off or don't dismiss this thing so quickly without first trying it. Because first of all, when you drive the new Charger, it feels finally like an all-new generation, because it is. It's riding on an all-new architecture. The ride and handling has been significantly improved. It just feels a lot more manageable, a lot sportier than previous Chargers. And even though this vehicle weighs 6,000 pounds, you actually don't feel the weight quite as much as I expected it. In fact, the old Charger, to me, felt heavier and more cumbersome to drive because of the V8 engine that only put the power to the rear wheels, and it resulted in a lot of wheel spin. This, again, has that instant grip that I was really wanting Dodge to do for the V8 powered Chargers of the previous generation. But at the same time, you can easily put it into a rear drive mode and do those smoky burnouts if you guys choose to do so. As you guys saw, we got 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds, which is excellent. It makes this vehicle faster than the SRT Hellcat wide body from the previous generation. And while the range isn't great, just under 200 miles, I'm hoping Dodge will eventually address that, because a vehicle like this really should have well over 300 miles of range. So maybe they'll make some adjustments there with a bigger battery pack, which would also increase the range or the weight and increase the price tag. In terms of the interior, I really love what Dodge has done here. It feels a little bit more premium than before. It feels a lot more high tech. I also love the attitude adjustment ambient lighting, although it does have irritating reflections in the windshield that they do need to address, hopefully with a quick mid-cycle update. And the back seat is also still huge. This actually has more legroom versus all of its rivals and than the previous generation Charger, while also offering more trunk space. So there's a lot of win-wins here for the all-new generation. You just have to look past the fact that it's electric. But this is where things get interesting, because when the Charger Daytona first came out in 2024, it had a starting price of just under $60,000 for the 500 horsepower RT, around $73,000 for the 670 horsepower Scat Pack. However, here in 2026, you can now order these vehicles, and Dodge has discontinued the RT version, which leaves the 670 horsepower Scat Pack as the only Daytona available, and they've actually given the Daytona Scat Pack the same price as the RT. So now you can get the 670 horsepower version for around $59,995. That's plus a $19.95 destination charge. If you guys want the four-door version, it'll actually cost you $2,000 extra, which is a pretty reasonable amount. For the previous generation, Dodge was charging $3,000 extra for the Charger versus the Challenger, so they actually made it cheaper there. So base price for this model that I'm showing you here starts at $61,995. Now, if you compare that to the old Charger Scat Pack from 2023, it started at around $53,000 for a non-wide body. The wide body was $5,000 more at around $59,000. So in reality, the company's only charging you about $3,000 extra from the previous wide body Scat Pack Charger sedan in 2023. So I think that's actually a really great deal, considering the fact that this has 670 horsepower versus 485. Now, of course, this being a Dodge, it comes with a ton of options, including the Plus package, the Track package, the Suede and Carbon package, the Sun and Sound package, the upcharge for the color. All in with destination, this particular one here, stickers at just over 80,000, around 80,485. So that is a pretty hefty increase. It's got a lot of options on it. And also remember that there is no more $7,500 federal tax credit. That actually ended on September 30th. So keep that in mind. But at the same time, they have reduced the price of this model by about $14,000 versus when it came out. So if you can get one of these for around $65,000, I actually think it's a screaming deal. So only time will tell. Remember as well, if you guys don't want the EV, the six-pack is coming. Basically, you can get into the six-pack Scat Pack model for around $55,000, so it's around $5,000 less versus the EV. So Dodge is actually being really reasonable with the pricing here, and I think once people actually give this vehicle a chance, I know it's going to be hard for all the Dodge faithful, I think you're going to be quite surprised with what the company has done here. And again, if you don't like the EV and its fake noises, just buy the 6-pack. That'll be coming out in early part of 2026, and it'll be $5,000 cheaper. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my very detailed overview after living with the 2026 Dodge Charger EV and the 4-door configuration. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.